It's the Movie Toasty Show. Yeah.
What's up, Toasties? Movie Toaster Adam here. I just watched the new zombie horror film, Herd. This movie is about a couple who's trying to mend their relationship, but they do it with a camping trip, and neither one really feels comfortable. And when things seem to be coming to an end for the couple, they realize that they have to survive a zombie apocalypse together and fend off a militia and face their past to get to their future. I'm trying not to spoil things here because this is a pretty interesting, fun, thrilling horror film. It has great acting, pretty good cinematography, and the makeup effects for the zombies look pretty darn good. And it's kind of funny at times, and it's scary at other moments. And it's a brisk film. It doesn't take so long. It doesn't bog you down with a bunch of backstory, but the characters are already enriched with a rich backstory, and you don't need to hear it, but you can feel it from the acting and the performances and the writing. This movie comes out on October 13th, so I hope you check it out. I just had the pleasure of sitting down with the film's co-writer and the film's director, Stephen Pierce, and two of the film's stars, Mr. Corbin Burson and Mr. Dana Snyder. You might be wondering, where do I know Corbin from? Well, he's been on so much. I like to think of him from the show Psych. He played Henry. And Dana is also from a lot of stuff, but I like to think of him from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. He plays Master Shake. And I'm a big fan of both those shows and movies, so I had to ask them both about the future of their projects, if the franchises were going to live on. And I asked a lot of questions about this great movie. So, with no further ado, let's get into the interview. Thank you guys for meeting with me. How y'all doing today?
Doing fantastically. How about you, Adam?
I'm awesome. I'm excited to meet you all. SNL is like a sketch comedy masterclass. Aqua Teen is like an amazing show that defines cartoons, and Psych is one of my favorites. So I'm just jazzed to be here with you guys. Thank you so much.
I appreciate these guys have huge impacts in their show, and I appreciate you putting me first so I felt in the group, but it wasn't so like
Without those guys, you wouldn't they wouldn't be here without you. So this movie wouldn't exist. So hey, you're number one here.
Now, if it wasn't for Steven.
That's for sure. Steven, first up, this movie has like two different movies at once. It's like, well, kind of a couple of movies. You got the relationship story, you got the zombie story, you got the father and daughter story. What was that like coming up with the story? Was it easy, or were they different movies and you kind of combined them into one?
Yeah, no. So Herd, I mean, ultimately, it boils down to one core story, right? That it's really about the main relationship of these two women trying to save their failing marriage, and they end up trapped in rural Missouri between a zombie outbreak and warring militia groups. The whole thing's about, people that are willing to kind of, as how like groupthink can make people want to condemn and destroy before they accept and understand. So that's sort of the main core story. We started, writing, James and I have written a bunch of stuff together. We rewrite across time. We do a lot of readings. It started with that core concept and just kind of kept expanding and trying to find the new characters we found then John Gruber, played by Jeremy Holm, and then we found kind of the more other side characters, and then found more ways to intersect them across time. That's just kind of the dramatic structure of it. I mean, I personally think the screenplay is very strong. The script is, but it didn't start that way. It takes 9 months to write a script that's worth a shit. The first one was absolute garbage, and you just keep working on it, and you keep rewriting, and you keep rewriting, and then if you're lucky, you end up with guys like Dana and Corbin who will sign on to do a role, and they make it immensely better. Whatever you did, if you hire great actors and great performers, they're going to take what you did and ratchet it up a notch.
For sure, definitely. Corbin, when we first meet your character, we're not quite sure what's going on, but we know something's not right. Is there any pressure on you to start a movie off like that? Like, did you feel any like pressure being like, all right, I got to kick this thing into motion, or was it just like any other job beginning shooting?
I can honestly say I don't think I've been in a lot of stuff. I probably have one of the largest IMDb's of, 60% good stuff, 30% okay, and 10% pure trash. to support 4 sons. But I I recognize the importance is certainly in a thriller, horror movie or something, and actually most movies. If you don't, you got today, especially, you got to start out with a bang. You got to start out with something. You got to have that. It used to be the inciting moment that could happen, 10 minutes in or no, now it's like you got to start. You got to get people right before herd comes up. You got to see, you want the audience in. So structurally, an actor, I have two things. I have to interpret the character and make the character work, but I also need to, it's really important to me, going right back to LA Law. I used to understand exactly what my importance was, the relevance of my character, what my character's drive is in relationship to what the overall story structure is. And in this, because there's not a lot more for me to do. So I come in and I'm the ringmaster welcoming the audience to the circus. And so I knew it was important to kick it off with high octane. And it just happens that I love doing that kind of thing, I love play acting, that tension of, as an acting exercise, because there's like really nothing that we're looking at. There's no zombies. How much can I ramp up the excitement? And
you're our Drew Barrymore, Corbin.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good way to look at it.
You're our Drew.
Yeah, so that's and that to me was really the main thing. I mean, I have a few flashbacks, but really, I'm one welcoming you to the show.
You did a hell of a job at it. Thank you.
Oh,
You
thanks,
really
man.
got me hooked right away.
Well, then I did what I had to do. I did my part,
I mean, and
the rocket to the moon, but we don't often celebrate the people who put the fuel in the rocket,
Sadly.
So, and I know as an actor, every part that everybody does has value, even a background person.
Sure.
Very important,
100%.
So
I mean, you're absolutely right, Corbin. And it's something James and I always try and do in all of our screenplays. And it's also it's weird. It's one of the last things we write usually is the cold open. It's really rare that's something like, I think on Herd was one of the last scenes that we wrote, like before, whenever we were getting to a final draft, something that resembles what's on screen now. It just, you kind of got to understand the whole concept of what you're doing before you understand how to tease it. You know what I mean? It's like, so you can't.
Makes sense.
That it's a cool scene. And, I started off writing commercials in radio, and they used to have a philosophy. They were like, had to use 7 seconds. You have 7 seconds to get the audience. And I think it's much more like 3 seconds now. In a film, you got like 30 seconds to get somebody hooked. And like, if they're not in on that 30 seconds, there's just too much other content for them to watch.
I actually agree. It's probably better to write your screenplay and come back and go, now, what do I need? Taking everything that we're doing. It's almost like creating a teaser for the film.
Yeah. You already know the characters so well at that point.
Oops, you know everything you need. And by the way, you can probably fill in a lot of blanks of like stuff that's not going to be very clear maybe in the story. I can get right at the beginning. I can tell you the world, so you don't have to say when the zombie outbreak. You don't need any of that stuff. It's like it's a fucking world full of zombies.
True.
And right book at the start is like, then you end up with season 4 of Lost, when you're like, so that thing was just nothing. The polar bear meant nothing. Was this? Smoke monster.
You're not wrong.
Not to drag it so hard, but man, that was one of the most disappointing series watch. Because I did it in real. Do it in real time, where you like watched it across time.
Slap in the face.
Oh God.
Now, Dana, your character, he has such a strong moral compass, but it seems like he's fallen in with the bad crowd, and they kind of push him to the brink of madness to kind of stand up for himself. How do now?
Crowd at him.
What's that?
Did he really fall in with the bad crowd, or was he the only gay in town, and these assholes just keep breaking his door down?
Well, that was maybe my question.
This is earlier, so he's stuck in this veterinary clinic in the middle of nowhere. But I think there's self-reflection when no one's in the clinic. He's made a lot of bad choices.
Now, if the militia never found him, what do you think he would do to survive this apocalypse? Do you think he'd just live in the clinic, or would he go out and find a group of people?
No. That's his citadel. He's locking the doors and drinking rubbing alcohol for the rest of his life. I
just
feel
kind
like
of giving up.
the real Louis trajectory, or maybe like that guy in Cannonball Run, who Jack Elam, who kept giving himself shots, like one of those type, probably like because he definitely is not from there originally.
Mm.
He's we determined that, uh, but yeah, I think he would try and I think he would try and hobbit himself as much as humanly possible. There's a reason he's a vet and not a doctor, and not just because he failed the first time the medical boards. He probably prefers the company of non-humans far
Fair
over.
enough.
People are messy.
I think everybody
True.
would enjoy listening you read your actor's journal for this, Louis, like your backstory and just all the weirdness you put into it.
Coming out on Bantam Books next month. Life with Louis. No, different title.
Now, Steven, you've done a lot of shorts and, like you said, commercials, but I know you have a strong editing background. When you were directing this on set, did you kind of look at it as a director / editor? Did you get a lot of coverage, or did you kind of know exactly what you needed?
Oh, 100% shot for the edit. Like, I don't believe that, I'm not a believer in covering a scene unless you don't know. And there are times where I don't know what we're going to use here or not, and you have to. But I think it's the job of a director, especially on an indie. You just don't, if you're trying to cover a scene, you're making everything 30% less good because you just have to eat that much time for that many setups. Like, you got to know what you're generally looking for. You may not know the exact thing, but this general thing is it. And then, also one of the challenges is in directing is everybody brings a lot of talent, and especially in an indie. I mean, the actors will fly in, be on set tomorrow, shoot their biggest scene, and leave the next day. So they come, and there's no real opportunity for you to ever get them on page. We might have been shooting for 2.5 weeks, and it's my job to take the good ideas and funnel them into a final product that resembles itself. You know what I mean? That attaches to the other elements of it.
Well, one of the things that was nice about it too is that you did not waste a lot of time. You knew what you wanted. It's sometimes there's like mosiers, well, maybe like this we could do. No, he's coming out here. We're going to shoot it this way. We're going to do this thing.
Yeah, and there
must be nice for an actor dealing with someone who knows what they want.
You feel like at least the guy knows what he wants. And sometimes you don't feel that way, and you're like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but the difference of knowing what you want, and what Steven does is knowing what he wants, but allowing you room to find an interpretation to achieve that want. There's a lot of guys I've worked for, who I won't say, big writers, directors, who you feel like you can never please them because they've got they know what they want, and God bless them, they've done well in their careers, but you're constantly feel like you're trying to get what they want and not just explore it organically. And more importantly, they kind of know when they've got what they want. They'll go, I tell this to a lot of people, a lot of young actors. If you get a director who says, I got what I need, that's not like you did an okay job. That is, they got what they need because he knows what he wants. And actors have a hard time with that. What weren't blown away? No, it's just a fucking take, man. You just knock knock, who's there? Hi, it's Joe. Okay, well, no, I want it a certain way, and I got what I need. Really, really important. But young actors especially, don't get that. Now I'm completely. If they go moving on, I go great.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Many directors. I've worked with many directors that would shoot a ton of coverage. It's also, coverage is dangerous, man. Like, you get, what I mean? You want to do it many times. You want to be seamless. So the cuts have to, if you don't know where the cut's going to happen, on what action, on what general line, you're kind of playing with fire. You're hoping you can fix it later. I've worked with many directors that just give you tons and tons and tons of footage. And it's like, well, what's the difference between this take and this take? And they don't know. And I'm like, well, you gotta, you have to be able to do that. I mean, that's the job. That is the job, is, at least for me, that is part of it.
There are the other guys like David Fincher who does shoot endlessly.
Yeah.
I saw him shoot 43 takes of a guy coming downstairs for a little pilot that I did. And I thought, what the hell? But
it's a master.
He wants as much because he, in a different way, has the time, the money, the affordability he can tinker with your performance as nothing that you did. He can put so much stuff that he can make you one way or this way. But that's it's certainly a little indie. You don't have that
Yeah.
luxury.
And that again, not to say I wouldn't do more takes on stuff or more coverage if we had the money. Honestly, I think if
Sure.
you have money, I'd honestly probably do less coverage, but more with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? I do more elaborate things within what we were doing to make it resemble life a little bit more. But I don't know. I don't know. I've never had that big of a budget, so we'll see what that, hopefully.
Well, you did great with what you had. I'm not gonna lie, it was fantastic.
You're gonna get it, Stephen. I predict you're gonna get it, man.
One of the things I was most excited about, I'm very proud of the staging in this film because again, like working with actors is like everyone's different and every actor is different. But most of the time, actors that I work with like are really want a motivation of some kind. Like when you're directing them to like adjust something, you don't say, "Oh, a little more sad." Like that's just you want to be enough in the like world of their emotional journey that you can say, well, I think you're thinking this, and I think you're after this, and this is what you're trying to do, and you let them filter that through their acting, but then through their person. But there are definitely times like there's scenes in here where we have 8 people, you know what I mean, in one shot, and we're playing multi-planes at the same time. And there would be sometimes an actor would have an idea, but like, well, I really want to do this and I really want to move. And I'd try and be like, well, but I think you're thinking this, and I'm getting too clever about it. And they're like, no, I'm not thinking that at all. And eventually I'd be like, okay, there are 8 people here, and I need you to take up this much space. So whatever you need to do to into your process to like fit in this box, like that's what we got to do here.
Now, Corbin, for you, Robert didn't seem to be the best father, but he seemed to be a pretty good militia leader. Do you think he was born to be a militia leader, and do you think that he wanted to be a good father, or how do you look at that character?
I look at the character the way I look at all my characters. I happen to love human beings, humanity. I'm not a big believer, oddly, in necessarily good and evil. I think we're products of circumstance. I mean, certainly on a sort of religious level. I try to, with all of my characters, find the humanity, the good part. I think that's, you get Robert De Niro, you get a certain thing, you get so-and-so, you get a certain thing. I think one of the things I bring, and that's not because I've refined it, but I've understood it, is that I so love my characters. I love that I have empathy for them, that I can bring humanity to the worst of them. So I would tell you he wanted to be a good father. Probably drinks too much. I mean, we can create excuses why he got the way he got. We don't get a lot of it in the story, but me bringing it in, certainly for the flashbacks, and just where you see his face at the beginning, you don't want to go, oh, that's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I'm starting, I'm the ringmaster. You don't want to immediately go, this guy's an asshole. Would he be a good militia leader? Probably. I think he's more of he probably was a better ringleader of that group in the warehouse, in the shop there. I think he's just a natural leader when a group of people get together, but I don't know if he had aspirations to be the leader. I don't think that's it for me. That's not who he was. But he's a survivor,
True.
He wanted to survive.
I would agree.
It just might have been a little bit this zombie outbreak. Then you play the other part, which is it's all over. It's a little bit like me with technology, it's like it's a little over my head and a little bit beyond my. As you get older, one thing I'm finding is that I can't fucking tolerate. I'm going through all my apps this morning and trying to get them on one credit card. Fucking impossible.
True.
Yeah, literally, because I keep getting like, charged for this, $1.99, $2.99, $3.99.
And you kind of want to just know where it's going, one area.
That card's no longer because it's expired. It's like, so I thought I'm going to put them all on one card. I'm going to use all the same somebody finds my password, I'm fucked because it's across the board now.
I would agree with you.
He's a guy like me who's like, simplify it.
On the fact of Robert, militia leader, I would agree with you. I don't think that Robert is probably, there's a generational theme happening between Robert and Gruber and Bernie that we were kind of playing with, that it's Gruber is in my mind, always wanted to be a leader. Like, this is his chance. This is what he viewed like whereas I think Robert was more of a community leader, like
Right.
where he's more about that and then he kind of fell from his own, struggles. And then I think you get down into the third generation and they have a different interpretation of what all of that is for them. And I think that that's sort of something that I have seen happen within my experience of people in, especially, in certain areas and certain types of people of the country. And I think that was what we were playing with.
Fair enough. And Dana, I know you have such a rich history of doing voiceover, but you have done a fair amount of live action work. Is there anything that you take from voiceover work that relays into live action, or do you look at them kind of in the same realm?
I mean, well, they're all acting. I mean, I can't tell you how many people who come up to me like, "What? How do I get into voice acting?" I'm like, the people say I have a great voice. Like, well, you still have to be an actor. If anything, you have less to rely on from your own person of your voice because you can't make gestures and things. You have to just use your voice and the animation and stuff. But I mean, it's all no matter what it is, it's still about character. It's about how you bring what you can bring to it. You have to be able to relate to it, whether it's a koala at the zoo or a human being working at the whatever. I mean, it's all, and it's. I think a lot of people think if it's voiceover, that means you're not acting or it's acting light or something. But it's all the same stuff. You have
Fair
a
enough.
script. You're making it alive. You have to make it relatable to you, so you can get regardless of your a wizard piece of toast or a a CEO or something.
A
Fair
wizard
enough.
piece of toast.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
Yeah, it's out there somewhere. I'm sure somebody made a wizard piece.
I already got the voice for it. I guess.
Oh, can we hear a little bit?
I would buy Corbin Burnson as Wizard Piece of Toast. I think.
Wizard piece of toast.
I think you got your follow-up movie right now, Steven.
I'll be Ciabatta. I'll be your little creepy little hench guy.
Sourdough rye.
Steven, we saw a good amount. Like, we don't know how far in we were of this outbreak, but we kind of see it come to a natural-ish conclusion, we think. But we know that it's happening all around the country. Do you have any interest in telling other stories in this outbreak in this time period? Or are you kind of done with this world and want to move on to something different?
There's a lot that we didn't get to expand upon in this world. When you start writing a feature film, I think is another funny thing that people that when they start writing, they're like, oh, when I'm writing shorts, when I finally write a feature, I'm going to get to tell all the story. And it's exactly the opposite. Like, features are so tight and they have to be so compact and so short and efficient that you end up shaving out a lot of great stuff. So we had, for us, we had 2 other scenes that had to get cut for budget reasons that we wish could be in this particular film. But outside of that, there are parallel stories and other lore and stuff we got into that I think would be very interesting to explore. We've talked to some people about doing a graphic novel on it, which is possible.
Nice.
And definitely might happen. We'll see.
Nice. And I'm sorry for jumping ship a little bit, but Corbin, there's been talk about possibly doing a Psych 4 movie. Is that something that is looking like it might happen? And if so, where would you want to see Henry go with that in that story?
Yeah, that's jumping around a bit. But there's been talk for quite a while. I understand there may be even a script, but it's all down to the networks. I don't know who owns who these days. But it seems to me that somebody that produces Tide cleaning products owns a network that owns Psych. I guess I don't know where you even start. That's the problem with this whole strike. Is
Fair
like,
enough.
I don't know who the hell is who anymore. But yes, I would love to do another saga. I know we all would love to. It starts to become interesting because my character can keep aging, but how old do you get to where Gus and Sean are gray-haired, middle-aged men, and it's still becomes interesting. That said, we talk, we group chat all the time, and we're very much a very tight family. And where would I like Henry go? There's a part of me that says, Henry should finally find what he's looking for, but I go with the U2 song. Still haven't found what I'm looking for. I haven't found what I'm looking for, and I'm not sure we do, and I'm not sure looking for something is the fucking purpose of life anymore. So
Fair enough.
you sort of living life, you know. And I think Henry, if anything, he gets to a place where maybe he understands that, but then that's boring, you know. Once you reach nirvana, I guess the show's over.
And Dana, I know you guys have. There's been talk that Adult Swim picked up 5 more episodes of Aqua Teen. Is that something that you guys have started? Is there anything you can talk about? Do you think it's going to follow the where we left off with Aqua Teen Forever?
It's done, baby.
Nice.
I think it's coming out. They already said.
Okay,
they're
perfect.
finished.
Anything you can kind of tell us about it, or
Price includes the whole seat, but you, Adam, will only need the edge.
fair enough. Now I'm sorry for asking these questions out of line here. And I'm sorry for asking such a stereotypical question for all of you on this next one. If there was a zombie outbreak, what would you guys do? Do you think you'd survive pretty well, or would it be a bit of a struggle?
In a minute, I would just say, you know what, guys? Let's be zombies. They seem to win in the end.
You know,
Fair enough.
I live in New York, and I think the struggle would be getting out. I do think about that occasionally. You know what I mean? Whenever, you know, like big world events happen, and I'm like, shit, like getting off this island might be a whole event. So I don't know. If I got out of here, I think I'd be okay.
You're screwed, Steve.
I live about 2 hours outside of the city, so I've got a couple hours head start on you. I would just see how far into the hills I could go, you know, and you know, just it's unfortunately it's my nature to try to outrun it. You know, that's a fault of mine in life is I try to outrun the problems, and in the end you realize, again, everything I was saying before, you can't outrun it. But that's probably what I would do.
You know, I think I need, now that you said this, I need to make a friend with a boat. That's really what it is.
There,
and
Smart move.
We talked about this on set.
Except for the movie Zombie Titanic.
Yeah, there you go.
Zombie Staten Island Buttery is coming out.
Well, somewhere between a dinghy and you know what I mean, and the Nina and the Pinta. You know what I mean, like a little smaller. Now, we did talk about this on set, and Ellen Adair, who plays Jamie, they always said if there was an actual zombie outbreak, I'm the first one out. Like they have no chance.
Fair enough. And I think I'm coming down to the end of time here with you guys. But Steven, one thing I'm wondering, I know editing, you kind of find diamonds in the rough. Is there anything that you found in post that you didn't expect to find that was just like a gem that you added into the movie that like you just were elated with?
It's a good question. I'm not, man, it's been a second. I'm positive. I mean, I think there's so many probably good gems that I found. You know, a lot of the fun experience was we shot with 2 cameras, and the second camera operator, his name's Ryan Doris. He's a director of photography and director of his own right. I've worked with a whole ton. And after the first couple takes, he would always kind of do carte blanche on his own coverage and did kind of a second unit direct on what we were doing. And so a lot of what ended up being there was a lot of stuff that he would find that was interesting and compelling. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of a specific one that wasn't like initially staged. I know there are. I'm just not sure.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Didn't mean to put you on that.
That's a very interesting question. I'll follow up with you if I can think of anything, but I'm not going to come to mind right at the moment.
And I guess same would go for Corbin and Dana. Is there anything that you guys saw like in the final product that you're like, oh wow, that was a better take than I imagined I gave, or like something you're like, oh, I kind of improv that and it paid off, or anything interesting like that?
I was shocked I was still in the film. But Steven's a bold filmmaker, so.
I'm always amazed to see how it comes together, because, you know, no matter what you're doing, you're in the moment, you know, and again, I have such a small little moment at the beginning of this, and, you know, you're breathing hard and you're looking around the corner, and, you know, you're what's out there, and you're doing it. It's kind of, it's how do I say this in the context? It's kind of bullshit. You know, you're just kind of, it's just intense child's play, pretending that you're scared, you know.
Fair enough.
Then I'm always surprised, especially when you have a wonderful director, that can pull it out and just take the moments that are right and make all that shit that you do. Because when you're doing that stuff, you definitely feel like this is way over the top. This is just too much. It's too. But then you start to realize he's not going to use all of it. He'll do that one, one look of the head that way. That's all they need. So I'm always amazed at, my fear always in something like this is that I go too far, some directors are like, oh, that's great. And they just give you everything and it's bullshit. But, Steven's, great editing. You just get the salient moments that you need. And I was pleasantly surprised with that.
Nice.
You see it all come together and everybody's little pockets, how they all
Right.
fit together and we're the tapestry of it all.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for giving me a half hour of your time. I hope a lot of people find this movie. I can't wait to see what you guys all do next.
Thanks a lot, man. It was really nice to meet you, and thanks for taking the time to talk with us, Adam.
It's the Movie Toasty Show.